Hello and welcome to the channel. And in today's video, we will be having a discussion. What is the best representation of a Jim Lee Batman in action figure form? Obviously, we're only going to be discussing what I have in my collection. Um, there may uh, there may be other figures out there that I don't have that also represent the Jim Lee Batman. But I think I have a pretty good um, number of figures that we can look at to discuss and nominate and as the best Jim Lee style Batman action figure. So, of course, most of the figures in my collection have been customized in some way or form or the other. So if they don't look like their normal, retail version, um, it's because I've tried to modify the figures to look as best to a Jim Lee style Batman, right? So we're starting off here with this one, which has been customized with a different head sculpt. Um, I'll slide this guy to the side so that I can then put on the side the actual image of the original release. But basically, this figure is the Mattel. I have it here. The Mattel Batman Legacy Modern Age Batman figure. The head sculpt comes from the figure that we'll be looking at next, which is an offshoot of the original DC Direct Hush mold. Um, but um, but anyway, this figure I customized a few years ago, and I'm gonna slide them back. I customized them a few years ago and posted a quick video on him. Um, so basically, the only thing that I did was do the head swap and add the cloth cape. The cloth cape is already starting to fray here on the sides. But anyway, and also you can tell the torso is starting to turn greenish because of, I guess, just age. My figures aren't, they do get sunlight, but not direct sunlight. So um, things like sun damage and all of that isn't really a concern in my collection. But this figure, I guess, is just because of the age. I believe this figure is from like 2008 or something like that. But anyway, the reason that I made this custom is because at that time I thought that the body shape of the mold of this figure fit perfectly with the style and the look of Jim Lee's artwork. I guess I should have mentioned this at the beginning. Jim Lee is my favorite comic book artist. So when he finally came on board to DC Comics, after he sold Wildstorm, everybody's wet dream was basically having Jim Lee drop Batman, which eventually happened. And of course, his representation of Batman has now become almost like the standard since that time. Of course, we've had new variations come within the past few years in the comics. Some coming back to the oval, the yellow oval, right? Batman look and all that. But for the most part, a lot for the majority of the 2000s and the 2010s, uh, the Hush look, quote unquote, was basically the standard Batman look, right? But anyway, so this figure pretty much represents that sort of era of Batman. Um, and the body shape and the mold and everything kind of reminded me a lot of the Jim Lee style, musculature. If we get a closer look at the of the head sculpt, that is definitely the Jim Lee. Um, that is definitely the Jim Lee Batman. Um, it has the short ears, the very sharp nose, the very square jaw. I mean, they did a good job originally when they molded this for the original Hush line. They did a good job of capturing the Jim Lee style. The body though, this body was used for something else. I don't recall the exact use of this body mold originally, because I believe this body was a reuse later on for this release, the Legacy release. And when, like I said, so when I saw this body type, this figure, I was like, okay, this is gonna be perfect to put on that Hush head on this figure, and boom, we've got ourselves a cool looking Jim Lee Batman figure in the black and gray. The next figure we're gonna look is the original source for the head sculpt that's on this figure, and it is this guy right here. So this, I believe this is DC Direct. I don't. Yeah, I believe it is. I believe they kept these molds. The DC Direct reactivated series from the reactivated series. So this is standard Batman, right? But the head sculpt on this guy, since I used the head sculpt that came on this figure for the previous custom on the Legacy figure, the head sculpt that is currently on this guy is the one from the Mafex, which we'll be looking at later on. So the reactivated body is pretty much. Let me slide this guy over. The reactivated body is pretty much the original Hush mold from the early 2000s, um, and it's just been reused over and over for a few times. But I believe this was the first time that they used the yellow oval on the yellow oval version of for this figure. But what you'll notice, he has the black undies, but everything else is in the blue, right? Like in his traditional blue and gray. Now the head sculpt, I haven't repainted it yet, because eventually I did wanna, if I ever felt the need to swap out this head sculpt, uh, the head sculpt on the Mafex, I can keep going back and forth, right, without having to repaint anything. So that's why I kept this guy with the standard, the Mesco, the Mesco, the Mafex color scheme, which is for the Hush figure. So it has the darker blue. So my plan was never going to be to repaint it, but it doesn't bother me. Although we have the newest Mafex, which already has the blue and gray, the this color scheme, the light blue, the 80s, the Nightfall. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. The Nightfall Mafex figure, although they call it something else. So I may swap out that head sculpt for this, but since at the time I was looking to make the perfect like Jim Lee Batman, the Mafex head works perfectly on this body as well. And you'll see that some of the things that I did on this figure, To customize him, I gave him the cloth cape. I did the cuts for to enable the thigh cut. Also, a torso. You saw how it expanded there on the torso, so that he would be able to twist at the waist. I cut out the. I gave him a wrist articulate or forearm articulation. I also cut out some little bits of a slit there by the thumb, so that he'd be able to hold the cape. And then finally enabled for me to be able to put on the head sculpt. I had to modify and make a custom bald pig out of beads, and I believe that's like a clip. I forgot what I used as a stem. I believe it's some sort of clip that I broke apart. But yeah, it fits perfectly. And this figure, which was once all posed in one, in one stiff pose, now I'm able to give him slightly more posing possibilities. So the thing that this figure also did a good job at capturing. Excuse me. Some of the things that they did was capturing the also the Jim Lee aesthetic, but I believe that the waist part is a little too long. So because they want for the belts that they used on the figures were pretty big, and you can see on this one as well. This is a pretty big capsule belt. So they had to almost like expand the waistline on this guy. A shorter, stockier torso would have worked great to complete the look on this guy. And then from here, we have another. I believe this is still DC Direct. I'm trying to remember if it was DC Direct or if they had already rebranded as, I believe they were called DC Collectibles afterwards. Sorry, just cleaning them up. So next we have uh, the new 52, Batman. I forget for what line he was released. If I can find the actual, again, I'll be posting an image on here of the release if I can find it. But I believe they were just called the new 52 figures, and they were releasing different types of versions of this suit. I believe there's like a black and white one. There was one released in a seven pack and all that, but the individual releases, I guess they were just called the new 52, right? So this one did a great job of nailing the proportions, right, of a Jim Lee drawing, you could say. But of course, the head sculpt on this guy has been swapped out for the figure that we'll be seeing after this, one of the McFarlanes. But so that one has the head sculpt from the from the McFarlane Multiverse Detective Comics 1000 version, which I also think looks. I mean, it's not a Jim Lee head sculpt, and we'll discuss that when we talk about the actual McFarlane release. But I still think it fits perfectly on this representation on this figure. So again, the only thing that I did, I'll just put them to the side so you can. So like I said, I'll post an image on the side of the actual figure here. But yeah, this figure I only did the mod to add the cloth cape and a different head sculpt. Um, I kept the original. I believe I kept the belt, the ball pick from that came from this figure, and this is how it looks with that McFarlane head sculpt. All in all, the head sculpt wasn't bad. Obviously, it could have used a little more covering up of the nose there instead of leaving too much of the bottom of the nostrils and all of that exposed. Traditionally, all of that is more covered up. Um, but I don't think it was a total fail. The total fail on McFarlane's part, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so here we have the McFarlane Toys DC Direct. I'm sorry, what am I talking about? So here we have the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse. What? Like Detective Comics 1000 Batman. So there was a lot of antsy people when McFarlane picked up the license after Mattel. People weren't, McFarlane was known for one thing: great sculpts, but not the best articulation. Um, so people were wondering what it was that they were going to get once McFarlane started releasing figures for his multiverse line. And the first wave of figures was a mixed bag. Some people were happy with, I believe there was a Superman. We had the Batman. I believe we had like a Harley Quinn based off of the animated series. I believe the Batman also from the animated series. I forget what other figures were released on that initial wave. There was a lot of mixed results. People weren't happy with some of the sculpting. People weren't happy with how the figures were having trouble standing up and all of that. So that first wave was a little bit of trial and error on part of on McFarlane's part. So let me just pull this guy here to the side, and I'll post an image of what the figure originally looked like, which is pretty much this. Uh, you know, it's pretty much this, except with a different head sculpt. Right, so like I said, the original head sculpt for this figure was the one that we just saw, which is this one. And the head sculpt that is currently on was the one for the new 52 body, which was again the one we just saw, this one. And I had to modify the figure to give him a cloth cowl. Well, not the cowl, just the neck piece here. And then I molded it from. It's obviously it's cloth, but I then hardened it with glue, right, to get to the shape. And then obviously I just added a cloth cape there. So some of the issues, obviously, with this figure, so the thing that a lot of people weren't happy with is, like I said, the musculature. Since this figure was, well, not promoted, but they were using as promotion the on the box art and the for the included trading card, the Jim Lee version. So many people were like, well, this isn't a Jim Lee Batman. He doesn't look like a Jim Lee Batman, right? The musculature is all wrong. I mean, not just because of it doesn't look like a Jim Lee drawing, but overall, the musculature just is wrong. Look at the musculature on the biceps. Biceps don't look like that. His legs are really skinny. You know, the torso and the abdomen part. there's like a gap there on the sides that doesn't fill out all that too well, you know. So the figure had its issues, which would later get corrected on future releases. In terms of overall, I would say this is one of the, excuse me, on the bottom of the run as far as Jim Lee style action figures, because there really isn't really anything Jim Lee about it except for how it was promoted. And now that I gave it a head sculpt, you know, it doesn't help, right? So the next figure we're gonna be looking at is the. Give me 1 second. Okay, so the next figure that we're gonna be looking at is the Mafex, the Mafex Hush. The Mafex Hush. So at that time, a lot of people were saying, "Yo, know what? This is it. This is the definitive Jim Lee Hush Batman." And yes, at that time, this was definitely the definitive version of the Hush Batman. It nailed the body type. It nailed the face sculpt for the most part. It isn't quite Jim Lee, but it has its Jim Lee ish, right? It's the same head sculpt that I used for my on the reactivated figure, but only with a different expression, right? This is where it came from. So, but yeah, look at the as far as the body sculpt and everything, the posability. You know, this figure basically has it all. One of the few complaints that people have about this figure, though, is the extra long cape. So, sorry, Jim Lee didn't quite draw his it's McFarlane. I keep thinking McFarlane because McFarlane is the one that would draw Batman with the huge long cape. Um, Jim Lee only used like an exaggerated cape for like one pose on one alternate cover where he's standing over like an an edge of a building, you know, on top of an eagle, or was it a gargoyle? I forget. Um, but um, but basically, that's pretty much the only time we saw like his version of Batman with like a really long cape. But traditionally, he would just draw the Batman with a normal size cape. So a lot of people were, you know, talking about this figure's cape. But other than that, a lot of people were just happy with the overall result of this figure. And yeah, I would say this is one of the top three best looking Jim Lee Batman figures out there. And then we come back to McFarlane. We come back to McFarlane and we're going to look at what a lot of people then thought, okay, now this is where things are going to get good. So finally, McFarlane delivered and gave us a proper Hush Jim Lee Batman. And even though the sculpt is not 100% in terms of the face, I think the face could use a little more work to have it be like a Jim Lee. But in terms of the body, Um, it still has its issues. A lot of people complain about the extra long legs, which is true. This figure is notorious for being really tall, amongst the top, amongst I'm sorry, amongst the tallest of the DC Multiverse line. And a lot of people have complaints of that because they expect Batman to be tall, but not the tallest. They expect characters like Superman to be taller, Martian Manhunter to be taller, you know, things of that nature. But for the most part, the this figure itself, this mold, has been reused a bunch of times before. We're gonna have a look at some of those. So the um, we also have the second release. So that was the first. Well, the one that I'm showing is the re-release. The original release was sold in a two-pack with the Hush figure, but the original did come in the black and gray. We then got this guy, which is the blue and gray version, right? And then we also got, where are these guys? Where are these guys? We also got these cute guys here, the page punchers, which are pretty much a scaled down version of this guys right here. So this is how, I believe this is a repaint of mine. No, this is how the figure came. I then got another one and repainted it black. Right. So because this one never released, so I got this one and I got an extra one and painted it in black. This is the original right here. So yeah, this figure, then there's the one that was released with the Bat Raptor that I also have, but it's hidden away somewhere, so I didn't bring it with them. But these are pretty much the two top examples of the Hush mold, and people are really happy with these ones, except for, like I mentioned, a few issues like the height and whatnot. But overall, if you want a highly articulated Jim Lee Hush Batman, this is pretty much it. So now we're coming near the end, and I've got one more figure that I want to show, which to me, in terms of just the representation and the look of a Jim Lee Batman, I think this next one nails it. Just give me 1 second. So the next figure is a custom, right? But first I need to show you the source of the figure, and then I'll show you the final figure, as I have him, as I just finished customizing him a couple of days ago. So I don't know how to show this guy best right here. So here we have a DC Direct figure, or a DC Collectibles. I forget which exactly it is. But this is the All Star Batman, right? The infamous All Star goddamn Batman. Um, so this figure is, as you can see, it's basically just a posable statue. Um, like literally, this is like a posable statue because you can't really do more with this figure than this basic pose, because of how the figure was sculpted. You can move the arms, you can move the at the elbows, you can bend them at the knees and all of that, but basically you can't stand them up, sorry, because of how that those legs have been sculpted. If you try and stand them up straight, it looks just awkward, right? And of course the torso twist. So basically, this is all you can do with this figure. But one of the things that this figure had, and I'll show you that when I'll post the image here of the actual figure. What this figure had was one of the best Jim Lee head sculpts that you will ever see. The current head that is on the figure is because I did a swap on the final on the final version that we're going to be looking at, the final Batman Jim Lee figure that we're going to be looking at. Um, the head sculpt of this guy, you're seeing the source image right here on the left. Is one of the best representations of a Jim Lee art of Jim Lee's artwork that you will ever see. And this head sculpt, I put it on because, like I said, it just fit perfectly on this head as on this body as well. This can serve as a generic Batman. You know, it doesn't have to be a representation of one of the all-star Batman. They can just work as any Batman, really. But what I think in terms of just style, overlooking issues like posability and playability, just in terms of like, this is it. This is the ultimate Jim Lee Batman figure that you can have. Is this guy. So I forget the original source of of this body mold, because it has been used a few times, but this particular one is the Batman and Sons version. I believe it's Mattel or DC Direct. I'll have to look that up when I post the source image. But yeah, it's either one or the other. But it's the line is called Batman and Son, and that, for some reason or another, they used Adam Kubert. Adam Kubert was was it Andy Kubert? Andy Kubert was the artist on that series. Andy had gone to work for DC Comics for a while, and they put him on Batman, which I was actually looking forward to, but kind of disappointed at how it looked. So it was kind of a letdown. But they reused this body, which was used for something else. Like I said, I can't remember, but the body mold is dead on Jim Lee Hush Batman, and I'm gonna show you an image right here on the side, and you're gonna look at it and you're gonna say, "Holy crap!" It's exactly that image. I believe it was taken from like a sketchbook, or I don't remember if it was this image was used in one of his art books that was released, or it was released in like a Wizard magazine or something, leading up to the release of of his run on the Batman for the Hush storyline, and they were just showing off sketches of his work. But yeah, if you look at this black and white drawing, and you just look at this, other than the angry, crazy, menacing face expression on the face, but this body mold is dead on Jim Lee Batman. And the added head sculpt, like I said, if there's another head sculpt that you can use on this body that is, you know, uh, in a Jim Lee style, that would also work. I had to do some modification on the neck because the neck was a little too elongated. Um, So I had to modify that just to properly fit the head sculpt from the All Star Batman figure. So this is the head sculpt that originally went on this figure, which you can see may have some traces of the Andy Kubert style. But this figure right here, Also, I had, like I said, there's one thing that I'm really, I almost nailed the color matching on this. From certain, sunlight, from certain angles and light sources. So what am I trying to say? From certain light sources, and you can't even really tell that there's like a slight mismatch in the color. But yeah, I've had this figure for a long time now, for like at least 3 years. I've had this figure. Well, not a long time, but for a while, I should say. I had the this figures, and I said I'm waiting for the right moment to put on the right head sculpt on this guy, so that I can have like my ultimate Jim Lee Batman. Um, and what sealed the deal is I then saw a while back, a couple of years ago also, uh, uh, Brad, the DC Universe guy or DC Universe geek. I forget how he has his, but I think people who follow, DC Multiverse will know him. He's one of the more popular um, YouTube channels. Um, Brad, the DC Universe. Uh, I believe it's called Brad, the DC Universe geek. But anyway, he originally showed this custom, but he went further than that, and he swapped out the forearms from this guy. He also included the forearms for this guy on his figure. I'm not going that extreme because I feel like the molded arms on this guy, you can twist the forearms as well, and you can't do that on the All Star Batman figure. Um, So the plan for this guy is originally to give him a cloth cape. You can see that this has already been separated for a long time. I've just been waiting for like the right head sculpt to come around, basically, to finish this custom. But yeah, this to me, even as much as a fan as I am of the McFarlane DC Multiverse line and this version of Hush, in terms of like posability and look, I think this is a little more accurate than say the SH figure arts. I'm sorry, not the SH figure arts, the Mafex. Although the Mafex is way more posable and stable. Um, but in terms of just showing somebody and telling them this is Jim Lee's artwork come to life. This is it. This is the figure I would show them. I don't know. Others may agree or disagree, uh, but um, but that's just my opinion. So what about you guys? What do you guys think is the best representation of Jim Lee's Batman in action figure form? If there's one figure that I didn't mention, that I didn't bring up, let me know down in the comment section, and I'll look him up, and maybe it's something that I'll pursue in the future. All right. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and all of that. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.